On this week's episode, we're going to discuss the next generation of Windows. Will it be Linux-based?
Yes.
Welcome to episode 345 of Destination Linux, your favorite video podcast. My name is Michael.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Jill.
In addition to Ryan being completely wrong about it being Linux-based, also in this episode, we're going to discuss Nvidia stepping up on the CPU side, and they're going to be attacking the AMD and Intel territory. So this is going to be a bold move, and we'll talk about that later on. Now let's get the show on the road toward Destination Linux.
This week, our community feedback comes from Matthew. He says, big fan of the show. I love how you make Linux fun and approachable for all. Folks new to Linux sometimes get thrown in the deep end with other Linux podcasts and YouTube channels. I can send new Linux users Destination Linux without any hesitation at all. Really like hearing that. That's what we want to hear.
That is perfect.
Yeah.
That is what we are trying to make, a show that is consumable for everyone and valuable to everyone. And I think we've nailed it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're a little biased, but hey, there was a really good...
Not biased in any way whatsoever.
You might be right, because we got Jill. There was a comment last week on our episode in which somebody said, you know, your podcast is so good, I'm thinking about giving up Windows. Like, they were a Windows user, and they were going to switch to Linux because they just love the podcast. That's how good we are, you know? But they go on to say... we are. Some background. I've been closely following the hacking scene for many years and plan to make transition to job in InfoSec in the near future. We have a lot of people, by the way, in our community. If you want to check out our Discord, they're a part of InfoSec as their main careers. Great opportunity to network. You see a little hint there?
Nicely done, sir.
Get in the industry. Regarding episode 344 in the Linux security article, I'd like to comment on 2 points covered. And this was our last week's episode, which was amazing. So if you haven't heard it, go check it out. It said the most secure general use operating system. I believe this is the case. Not only do you have open source developers reviewing, commenting, contributing towards the Linux code base, you have engineers from Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Oracle, and others doing the same. If servers at AWS are compromised at mass, the news will not be Linux was hacked. It will be Amazon was hacked. It is the best interest of large cloud providers to invest in the security of Linux. You have a mix of people contributing because they're passionate and want to contribute to the free and open source movement. And you have others contributing because it's their job. Either way, it's good for Linux. I think that's a really good point to make there. I think it kind of extends on what we were saying last week, that you have a lot of companies that are also monitoring all of these security issues. In fact, some of these big security alerts and things a lot of times come from companies like Google and others saying, hey, there's this issue here. You need to
most of the time. Yeah, most of the time the vulnerabilities that are found by companies who are using Linux heavily. And that is a great point, that the companies are going to be the ones that are being focused as hacked because that's the more clickable thing. Though Linux does have that a little bit at some points, because a lot of people want to say that Linux isn't secure and they want to prove it. So they make these articles like that. But typically they're nonsense anyway. But that is a great point about the companies, because it's not only the good point about they're the focus on those cases, but also if it has to be a very usable and a strong operating system if all of these companies are putting their money behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then he goes on to say the kernel creates multiple attack surfaces. This is laughable in my opinion. So he's quoting from the article there. The Linux kernel is developed by skilled engineers and seasoned professionals. It bakes in drivers, discouraging the user from installing their own drivers. Yes, whether baked in or user installed, drivers can have security flaws. That is unavoidable. That said, I would much rather have the Linux kernel team work with drivers and hardware enablement than have users add random drivers to their systems while they're trying to get some random piece of hardware running. Very common security flaw in Windows relies on bring your own vulnerable driver model. People forget that when they buy that budget piece of hardware from unknown brand on Amazon or Alibaba, it may require you to install a driver that will have deep system privileges on your PC. Many folks don't give it a second thought. Similar hardware from tiny startups with the driver that had been thrown together by one engineer whose sole object is to get it working. This is a big issue.
Yeah.
Not only for the pieces of hardware like GPUs and things that you typically go find a driver for, but a lot of these off-brand devices you can find cheaper versions of come with, and you all have seen this. You've opened an installer for one of these devices that you've bought that is a no-name brand, and you could tell it was like somebody clunked something together from some other piece of software they found, and the driver just instantly makes you think virus when you're going through installing it? Like,
there's cases where I have purchased products and then I realized that I could only edit this thing in Windows, and I was okay with that because it was a throwaway VM install of it. So like I have a keyboard that I do for real-time switching and stuff like that when we're doing the show. And I talked about it before in the past, but the application to configure this keyboard is only for Windows. And I thought that was very sketchy, especially the way you get it is from an Amazon AWS download, which is super weird. But at the same time, it doesn't bother me as much because I don't use Windows and I don't really care. So, but if someone was an average user and they were primary Windows, I don't know I would be okay with comfortable like recommending that sort of thing.
Hey, go to Dropbox, Michael, and install the driver for this thing. You know?
Exactly. It's equivalent of the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little weird. I think there's some really great points that you've added in here. I'm super excited about your InfoSec career. I think you're definitely in a career mode, in a place in the career world where a lot of businesses are looking for help here, and a lot of businesses need help here. My number one, suggestion to you would be you've got to network, because everyone I know is landing jobs these days, because jobs are, no matter what industry you're in, really hard to get, are getting them because they build a network. So really good opportunity. Join our lug group as an example. Join your local lugs, Linux user groups. Join in Discord where there's InfoSec people around to get to know
forums,
people. Build your network.
Yeah. tuxdigital.com/Discord and forum.tuxdigital.com.
That's why we have a community, And it's free. We don't charge for it. We're not getting anything out of it other than you get to hang out. And
we get to benefit by being in the community as well, Ryan.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying, though. We don't charge people for this amazing benefit.
We would never do that. No.
We'd never do that.
Just join
Jill
us.
wouldn't let us. We tried. Jill said no.
Yeah.
Like, we were charging.
She's like, boys, let's not do that. Like, okay, fine.
There you go. Thank Jill. They finish off by saying, by the way, that whole segment was a joke. Don't write in and tell us, blah, blah, blah. We were kidding. Okay. They finish by saying,
we're not kidding. Jill is awesome.
Well, Jill's awesome, but we weren't ever going to charge for people.
I mean, not with that attitude.
Yeah. Well. So they finish this by saying, thanks for touching on these topics. It is always fun to hear your take. Thanks again for all you do for the community. End toxicity. And you all lead by example. Well, we followed Jill.
We followed Jill. That's true.
Yeah. I was pretty toxic before I met Jill.
I wouldn't say toxic, but I said we were a little bit more negative than before. So I will say Jill is like the beacon of hope when it comes to positivity in the Linux community.
You always notice that on every video we do, there's somebody, it doesn't matter which video, if we're talking about Jill directly and how much we love her or not, which is probably every episode, but so even the episodes we don't happen to mention that, there's always somebody who starts a thread that's like, we love Jill. And then there's like 20 people that thumbs up it and heart it and all this stuff. Like, she's got a whole little following outside of even us, Michael.
Well, that's funny because speaking of the Discord server, there was a message just right after the last episode where it said, thanks for the show at Jill. Like, wait, there's other people on the show.
I love it. I love it. Some people collect Pokemon cards. Others collect baseball cards.
Sure.
I've never told people this before, have a little bit of a collection of UFC trading cards.
Nice. I didn't even know those existed.
Yeah, they're out there. And collections are vast as people's interests. You can collect things for nearly every hobby out there. However, Michael on this show has the strangest hobby of all.
I have many hobbies and many collections.
No,
what are you talking about?
This one's very weird. You collect domain names. You collect domain names like nobody I've ever seen in my life.
That's just ridiculous.
That's true.
That's ridiculous. I only have about 70. What's
100, 70, 100, like my kids would say. They're like, I want 70, 100 of this because that's what, it's not just 70. Like Pokemon, Michael has to collect them all. Literally, and I mean this, any discussion we have with Michael about a new business thing always ends with, we should buy a domain for that. That's Michael's like input of, let's buy a domain for that. He wants the .com, the .net, the .biz, the .community. He wants them all. He wants to collect them all because like they're going out of style.
Okay, that's a bit excessive. I do have a lot of domains and those conversations have happened, but .biz? Really?
That's the one that got you. That's the one you're like, I don't collect those.
I have
Those are for
3.
plebs.
I still have 3.
Pleb collectors are the .biz. So as you can imagine, this gets quite expensive for us. But thankfully, I was able to find a solution for that, and that's where Namecheap comes in. Namecheap is a place where, as you guessed by their name, you can buy domains for cheap. Therefore,
That makes
Namecheap.
sense.
Yeah. And you can also host sites, and they have other services there as well. So if you want to be like Michael and collect domain names, or you're actually starting a business and just need one, I suggest going to Namecheap. This is where we get ours. And we have a link in the show notes where you can start your collection and support our show all at the same time. You can do both at the same time. In fact, they could probably go to a really clever URL that you probably bought, Michael.
I got a domain for this,
Yeah.
Of course
Ryan.
you do. What's that domain, Michael?
DestinationLinux.net/Namecheap.
See, the .net was the thing, but I wish it was .biz now, because then I've been like, oh, you did buy a .biz.
Well,
So .net.
I could add to
Destination
my
Linux.
collection, Ryan.
What about
Yeah.
.tv?
Yeah, well, don't encourage him, Jill.
Yeah.
So click that link and see if you can outcollect Michael. Let's talk about something, and we're going to try our hardest not to be toxic on this topic here. In fact, Michael, I don't want you to laugh when I say Microsoft hearts Linux. Good job. But they don't necessarily heart Google. So we haven't
that's clear.
seen that
clear.
slogan.
Hmm.
So there's some
Linux.
controversy. And we love controversy. We got some tea, Michael. We got some tea here about. Why are you laughing? That's what the term you use. When
That's
you
what the
got,
kids say, bro.
That's what the kids say out there.
I'm so hip.
Yeah,
Hello, fellow kids.
so bad. All right, so there's some controversy about Microsoft's move to keep its Edge browser relevant. If you've tried to install Google Chrome from Edge, you might have noticed that there's already this plethora of pop-ups that will come up. They have an ad banner that kind of goes across the top and all this stuff. I think it even has a literal pop-up going in the middle of your screen. Like, are you sure you want to switch? Have you tried all the features of Bing? When you go and type Chrome in your Bing.
Well, Windows
Bing
users
browser.
love pop-ups, so
Yeah.
They do. Yeah, you don't know if it's a virus or the operating system, or both. Or they're all
Or
the
both.
same there. So they're trying to get you to change your mind. And Microsoft has recently ramped this up with some additional stopgaps to keep users from switching, including a poll. So now it pulls up a poll and asks you to fill out a survey of why you're downloading Chrome. Why are you doing this, people?
why are you abandoning this amazing browser?
Yeah. And so they ask you multiple questions about why you're deciding to use another browser. They're really upset with you. And obviously, Microsoft is betting big on Bing, which used to be kind of a joke back in the day. And now, there's a lot. They're starting to take some market
Still
share.
kind of a joke, but it's a little bit more
A
improved.
little bit less of a joke.
Yeah.
And that's because of their $10 billion bet on ChatGPT. I think that was quite brilliant with their integration of ChatGPT into Bing. And they're wanting to get some return on that. And obviously, to get some return on that, you need to get users over there and keep people in Edge and dethrone a little bit of Chrome. But Bing is still using the Chromium. I mean, Edge is still using the Chromium engine,
Yes.
which, of course, that's an interesting
So
move.
Google's still going to dominate because of that. Google's engine is still in domination because Chromium, Edge is based on Chromium. Google makes Chromium. Therefore, they're still going to dominate no matter what. But it is interesting that they're doing this, and especially with the poll, because the poll asks you, why are you leaving? Or why are you downloading a different browser? And when you do so, it gives you options that are basically like, Edge isn't good, or it can't load the things. And it's got actual complaints that people have submitted in the public and stuff like that. So it's interesting that their poll provides reasons that are possibly real reasons. So I think it's kind of interesting, but also I know why people would get mad at this because it's just a pop-up and everybody hates pop-ups and that sort of stuff. But it kind of makes sense. If you are a service provider or you create a product and you have the opportunity to ask someone why they don't want to use your service or your product, wouldn't you want to know? Because then you could help improve it and that sort of stuff. You can get this feedback. So I think it kind of makes sense to do it. And it also makes me question, do they do it for Firefox as well?
I don't think so. I don't think Firefox is the big thing there. But Jill, what is your take? To me, this is shady. What do you think?
I do think it's on the edge of being shady.
Ah, I see what you did there.
Good job.
So I'm with Michael. It is, they are.
Hold on 1 second. Just to quickly go back to your dad joke, I want to give you the proper response I should have given, but I forgot to. Okay. And that's bing.
Oh my gosh. What is happening?
Oh, that was
Don't laugh
funny,
at him,
Michael.
Jill. Only
Very
encourages
good.
him.
Thank you, Jill.
That was awesome. So I agree with Michael. I do actually think it's okay, and at least the questions are actually in a side action center panel. They could have been in a pop up in the center of the screen, which I don't think they were from what the article was saying. That the questions are just on the side in the action center.
They opened a sidebar sort of thing.
Yeah,
and that's not as bad. If it was actually on top of the web page for Chromium or Chrome, that would be a problem. But
or if Clippy popped up.
Actually, if Clippy popped up, I would love that.
I'm going to use Bing.
I was going to say
Edge.
that.
I would use Bing and Edge specifically so when Clippy would pop up.
Yes. I kind of agree with that. Clippy would be a little more friendly.
Game changer. More
pop-ups.
More important than your $10 billion chat GPT. Bring Clippy back.
Who needs AI? We need Clippy.
Clippy was AI.
Yes.
Clippy
but
was alive.
Honestly, the fact that Microsoft is actually so paranoid.
Clippy was sentient.
That's sentient. But the fact that Microsoft is actually so paranoid that they feel they need to ask these questions does demonstrate their fear of losing market share in the browser wars once again. Dun dun dun. Hint hint. Internet Explorer versus Netscape.
Yeah,
I think
all over again.
I don't think Microsoft is paranoid at all. I don't think this is a sign of paranoia. I think this is a sign of them having metrics and knowing people are leaving in droves and are wondering, is there a way we could stop them from leaving?
And that's so true. In fact,
because they have telemetry.
Yeah. So in fact, I did some research on that. According to StatCounter, the Edge browser is only at 5.29% browser market share worldwide, compared to Chrome's dominance of 63.45% of the browser market share worldwide.
Yeah.
They are concerned. They don't want to lose subscribers. Although they've actually, when you look at the stat counter, they actually, this year, they went up a percentage higher than they did last year.
Yeah, and it's hard to get any gain in that world. I mean, we've had multiple individuals from different browsers on our podcast that have developed their own. And it's very difficult to get anybody to move browsers or search engines for that matter, whether you're talking about Opera, you're talking about Firefox, or any of those. So obviously Microsoft has a lot bigger pockets than most and can throw billions at this. I think the part that becomes shady is just the sheer amount of, if it was just the poll, it'd be one thing, but they've been kind of doing the poll plus as soon as you type Chrome in the Bing engine, it has this advertising that pops up to stay with us and has a big Microsoft Bing advertising as your first result. And it's just, they're trying so hard that it just comes across as like, what you're doing with ChatGPT is literally innovating on top of a product in order to get people to use it. And that's what you're going to have to do. Bing essentially, or Edge essentially, is just Chrome now. So everything is based on how good your search engine is. I feel like all the search engines, when you look at Chrome or Google search engine and you look at Bing now, are garbage. They've gotten worse, not better, since all of this innovation. Have you guys run across this where your search results are now far worse than they ever were in the past to get what you're actually looking for?
Google has started
to go to like third or four pages sometimes.
Yeah. And sometimes it would give you stuff that's completely irrelevant. Like I would search for a specific set of keywords and it would grab only one of those keywords instead of trying to get them all, which is the exact opposite of what they're supposed to do.
And it's annoying because then they'll have the slash for the word not found. You're like, what? This never used to be a thing.
I think the person who can kind of take AI and then combine it into actual relevant search results versus just trying to sell you crap all the time will probably be the next person to dominate this. But there is a massive antitrust lawsuit right now going on against Google about this very thing, that they basically on their Android devices and Apple devices that they were paying telecom companies as well as paying Apple to make their search engine dominant. And this is creating an antitrust issue. So there's a lot of places that Google's being attacked right now for what they're doing, their dominance in this. And Microsoft, obviously being smart like they are, trying to capitalize on that with Bing. But geez, just give us good search results. That would in itself,
That'd be
I
nice.
think would help make somebody move over there. Like I love DuckDuckGo, but that's my big complaint, especially at the beginning with DuckDuckGo, is you didn't always get the latest results for things, like the newest results and that.
Yeah.
But now I feel that same way about Google and all of them.
On the bright
Just not
side,
good.
Google getting worse makes DuckDuckGo look better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, DuckDuckGo is pretty good for the most part, but it does sometimes leave something to be desired because you know that is not the best results you could get. And then you do the same results in Google and that proves it. But now it feels like Google's not even giving me the right stuff anymore. And I think it's interesting that all of this stuff is happening right now because we have such innovation in technology, and the AI stuff is game changing in some ways and absolute garbage in other ways. Like there are times where I feel like people are implementing AI just because they want to say that they did. And then they don't even consider the fact that it's not always the best choice. And it feels like they're doing this with their search engines, resulting in worse results. Because if you go to these chat systems and these AI bots and you ask them for search results, which people are doing now, they'll give you these results that may or may not be correct, but they will guarantee you that they are correct in the message it gives you, which is kind of like you're supposed to trust this thing that is guaranteeing, even if you ask it something that you know is wrong, it's going to be wrong about, it will still 100% say, yes, I am sure this is the correct answer. And then you correct it and it goes, oh, my bad. I actually don't have that information. Like, what?
Yeah.
It's really like they're floundering around to try and find the best use case for AI. That's kind of what I feel like.
Well, I think they get stockholders excited when they go in there and say, we're implementing AI, even if their business model makes no sense for it. And so they get the stockholders excited and then they implement some poor version of it. And then, people are, I think Michael makes a good point. I think people are exaggerating what the capabilities of AI are now, although I think it will exponentially grow with the amount of money that's being pumped into it. I think right now it's not as big of a deal as people like to think it is, at least for the versions that we get to see.
That's my theory about what's happening with Google and Bing. They used to be better results. They used to be better, but the AI stuff started around the same time that these search engines started getting worse. Yeah. I think there's a correlation between those two.
Well, look how bad Siri is. And it made the news this week that Apple is behind in AI and now is investing billions of dollars in servers and things to catch up in AI. And I'm like, haven't you been working on AI since Siri became a thing? I mean, I've never seen it actually progress. But
I think so. This is the wonderful news about Siri, is that Siri was created by a different third-party company that had the majority of what became Siri already made. Apple bought it, added some little bit of polish onto it, and then, hey, we're done. And I think that's where they stopped.
We finished.
Yeah.
They might add a couple features here and there overall in the app, like it integrates with something else new or whatever, but they're not really advancing it. I doubt that they have done anything other than just make it look good and make it more polished. But in some ways, it is kind of the best of all of them, which is just sad because that just means the rest of them are terrible.
They are really bad. So here's where my conspiracy theory starts to go wild, though. So I was thinking about this, Michael. I know you told me to stop thinking about things, but I couldn't help it. I started thinking about this really in depth. And then something popped up.
I'm glad you tried to stop thinking about things.
Thank you. And what I found was a Microsoft installation guide for Linux.
Yeah.
Now, this is not just an installation guide that's like, here's how to install WSL. That would make sense, right? Which is the subsystem for Linux that you can have within Windows itself. This actually goes through a full install of Linux written by Microsoft in their guide of how to wipe your machine and put Linux on it. So unlike this Edge controversy, this guide actually talks Linux up as well in it. It's not like trying to persuade you to not do this or say, hey, Windows has these advantages. You should probably stay in Windows. But if it doesn't say anything like that. For instance, this is a quote from the guide. It says, Linux is an operating system similar to Windows, but with many different versions due to the nature of being open source and fully customizable. Like it's selling Linux, I feel like, in that paragraph there.
Absolutely.
Like if I knew nothing about Linux and I read that, I'm like, dang, that's pretty cool. It's fully open source and fully customizable. That's awesome. So what's the play here with Microsoft? That's what was on my mind. What are they doing here? Is this the introduction to Linux that they're doing to rebase like Microsoft did with Chromium? Why keep making new Windows versions, right? When you can simply just make Linux distro and let everyone else do the work for you, essentially. You're just adding some polish on top of it.
I see what you're going there, but my take on this is there is zero chance that's what's happening. I am very confident
in that. So there's still a chance.
That's a zero chance. That's
0.1. You didn't say it was if it was 0.
0, 0, 0, 0, 0,
You're saying 0.0000.
0.
Is there any one if we keep going down?
Sure.
10?
Sure.
So
after 200 zeros, there is a 1.
There we go. Right.
So you're saying there's a chance. So in my opinion, what they're doing is really just promoting Linux in a way that benefits WSL. And it also keeps people from going to Linux. Because I know it seems like that's what they're doing, but the main point of this is to promote WSL and the value of it. And it makes them look much better in the eyes of the people who they're trying to advertise to, that they're not just focusing on their own thing. They're talking about the whole ecosystem. But they do it in a very generalized way. They don't just say, here's how to install this specific distro. Or if you want to install Linux Mint, this is how you do it. You want to install Ubuntu, this is how you do it. If you want to install Fedora, this is how they don't do that. They give you like a generic way of Linux, but not a full-blown step-by-step thing. So I feel like it kind of is their sign of saying, yes, Linux is here, you can use it, but also you could just use it in WSL and then have all the best of both worlds.
And it's so much easier, right? Click a few buttons.
That's what I feel like they're doing it for.
You're probably right, but I'm not the only one that believes that Windows can make this move. And I think you have to take into consideration the fact that Microsoft did this with Chromium. Like, why? Why not continue making their own engine? What's the difference?
Okay. The big difference between the browser switch and the platform switch is that they have dominance in Windows. They've had it forever. They had a browser that everyone hated and switched anyway. Like even when what was it? Explorer? That's what it was called. Explorer was
try to forget.
Yeah, I was trying to forget. I was trying to black it out like because it was like a very dark moment in time.
Yes.
But Explorer 10, 11, and 12 were actually much better than before. They were standard compliant. They were innovating in CSS compatibility and all sorts of different stuff. And then you look at Edge, they basically just adopted Chromium. And the reason I feel like it is because Explorer had such a bad reputation for so many years that they were never going to get that back. They were just like, you know what? It's not worth it because we don't really care that much about the browser. In that sense,
at the end, you're saying, hey, Microsoft doesn't have to because Windows is more popular.
Well, they've been already
losing market share.
They're losing market share, but only like maybe less than 10%, right?
Yeah. Well, you have to also think of the fact that Microsoft's invested a lot in Linux. They're spending a lot of money already in Linux.
That's true.
Including their Azure platform, WSL. You've got Steam Proton, which has removed a lot of the barriers for gaming. And finally, Microsoft is eager to get ARM-based processors going in laptops to compete with Apple. And Microsoft's NT kernel desperately needs to get rid of its bloat. Like, that's its biggest hurdle right now, is it's so bloated. And all of these things, when I started thinking about them, make Linux pretty appealing to rebase off of.
I
That last
actually
part makes me
Did I get
question
you?
myself.
very, very well spoken, Ryan. And I actually agree with what Ryan is speculating. Honestly, ever since the Microsoft Loves Linux campaign was started many years ago, I always had the thought in the back of my mind that Microsoft wanted to rebase Windows to Linux. Not the least of which I started seeing them pop up at Linux conventions,
Yeah.
like the Southern California Linux Expo and some other local conventions I've gone to, like Big Data Day. And we also had Code Camp at USC. And they were always there with their booth with the big banner that says Microsoft Love Tux Penguin.
Yep.
And it just, it creeped us all out. And, as Microsoft started using Linux more and more on the back end for cloud infrastructure, and they're acquiring GitHub and making the Windows subsystem for Linux, the possibility of Windows becoming a Linux distro just felt more real. I felt like from that very point that in time
it could happen, right?
It could happen.
It's not that
yeah.
it will happen; it just could, and it
could,
just
yeah.
You see these signs, and you start building this little conspiracy of thinking, it wouldn't be that big of a jump as it was in the past, when obviously Microsoft hated it, and it would be fascinating. Imagine Windows releases a distro, maybe partners with Ubuntu or somebody else to release a distro, and we're reviewing a Windows distro on this show. Like, it could happen. It could happen. Maybe
they've
episode
already made
400.
Yeah, they've
5,000.
already made 2 versions of a Linux distro for themselves in house.
That's true. Yeah.
I think that there's definitely going to be a Microsoft distro that is not even just a test bed like they have, but I think they're going to make a significantly impactful large distro, probably just for the cloud and stuff like that with Azure. But I don't think they're going to be switching away from Windows because there is so little incentive for them to do so. And if they did, they would be competing. They would basically take their position in the market share of dominance and then voluntarily sharing it with every other Linux distro. I just don't think they're going to do that because there's so little incentive to do it other than the ARM part. Obviously, Linux is a fantastic experience with ARM, and that's been proven many times over with many years. But if they could figure out a way to make Windows not have to worry about that and still work on ARM, I think that's definitely their play they're going to do, because there's so much backlash that could happen for their bottom line if they did a Linux distro, because of the whole, if anybody could just switch to Ubuntu and have zero ramifications of doing so, why wouldn't they? Right?
Well, you've got the licensing thing, like, and there's the popularity of it. So if I was Dell or HP or any of the other PC manufacturers out there, and Windows rebases off of Linux, the idea that all of a sudden I'm just going to be like, well, now I'm just going to use Ubuntu on my Dells and stuff and sell that, versus utilizing the Windows version of Linux, is very small, at least for time being. But you made a really good point that the competition from the fact that they would have to make all of these enhancements they're making open source, right, based on how the kernel's licensed, then everyone could start grabbing that, and taking that would be an interesting problem that they would have to overcome, because there may be a point where an Ubuntu or Fedora or something else comes in and actually offers a better version. But when you think about the talent at Microsoft, now I know for a fact, we've been written into this show that Microsoft employees actually listen to this show, and that, in fact, some of their engineers, their software engineers, play this show while they're working in their
Microsoft
office.
Developers.
Yay.
So, there is a true, I think, amongst their employees, a true love and passion for Linux and open source that exists there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's super exciting. And so I think they might want to push for something like this. But either way, I don't know definitely won't happen in the next version of Windows. I think there's a lot of controversy about Windows potentially going subscription based and other things like that. But it would be cool. It would be cool.
Yeah.
I'm saying I don't expect it to happen, but it would be very valuable for Linux as a platform, and it would become a kind of a huge stepping stone for people to get into Linux easier. But also, I feel like there is some element that I think that some people would hate this. And
oh my gosh,
Mhm.
yes.
yes,
Yeah.
they would
Yeah.
absolutely hate the idea of Microsoft being into Linux that deep. And I've even seen people say that, that they wouldn't use Linux if Microsoft was involved and that sort of stuff.
They're already involved.
And that's the case. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's
They're
what
one of the biggest
responded.
contributors to the Linux kernel.
Yeah.
I mean, they were the
Yeah.
biggest contributor for a specific year. I don't know how
Yeah.
much they do every year, but they have been doing it every year consistently for at least a decade, probably more. They also contribute to funding in a lot of conferences, and they fund a lot of projects and stuff too. So there's sponsorships and collaborations with all sorts of
And
different
they've been
companies.
following the rules. It's not like they're sneaking past metadata grabs in the kernel past Linus Torvalds. Like, he ain't letting that crap happen.
They would probably try it if they thought they could do it, but there's they know that there's no chance
we have a
that
guardian
would ever happen.
there. We got Thanos at the gate. You ain't getting past him.
Thanos Torvalds. I love it.
Thanos Torvalds. Yeah.
Well, I actually, Sasha
Wait,
Nutella.
why Thanos? He's not a guardian. He's the
Make
opposite
him
of
a guardian. Just
He's
somebody
ruining
super
things.
powerful. Like, with all. Shut up. What are you going to say, Jill?
So the CEO of Microsoft, Sasha Nutella, I think has been brilliant. He has played this so well, and especially now, I don't find, back when I was telling my story earlier, back then it was creepy, Microsoft
scary.
wanting to be loving Linux and all that.
Yeah, when they first announced it, because it was like when he first took over, they had made that announcement. Like, yeah, sure, buddy, sure.
Yeah, but I really think it's all about the money at Microsoft, and they make a lot of money on Linux, in the server and the cloud and Azure and
AI.
AI and GitHub. So it makes sense. They're kind of going where the money is, and they want to say, oh, we like this other operating system too, and they make money off Linux.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's just because they want to make themselves look like they're a part of the team,
Yeah,
they want to be cool like us.
Too.
You can't be cool like us.
They want to join the cool kids club.
The cool kids.
But,
We're the cool kids club now? When did Linux become the cool kids club?
I mean, sure.
When Jill joined?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right.
Well,
I didn't have a time frame, but that is exactly the answer.
Right.
Oh, well, speaking previously on the employees at Microsoft, I congratulate you. I actually have met a lot of employees that work at Microsoft who've never touched Windows. They're only working on Linux for
Nice.
Microsoft. So that's
pretty
awesome. Yeah.
So we're talking about ARM earlier, which brings in the next story here and completes my controversy. You see what I've done?
Yes.
This episode of Destination Linux is sponsored by LINBIT. LINBIT has been keeping digital businesses running for over 20 years. They're the makers of open source products like DRBD, which is high availability software that has been part of the Linux kernel since 2010, and LINSTOR, industry-leading open source software-defined storage. LINBIT has an active presence in the open source community, and they collaborate with the community to help identify and build new features. LINBIT provides enterprise-grade software that runs on a variety of platforms and OSs without vendor lock-in. What that means is that you could use the software on any platform, including specific hardware that you want to use, or just off-the-shelf hardware that you get and connect it. All of this stuff can be interchanged really easily. And with DRBD and LINSTOR, you can have high-speed replicated block storage in almost any configuration, whether it's Kubernetes, Apache Cloud, or OpenNebula. There's even DRBD proxy for long-distance replication. LINBIT is run by its founders to this day, and all of its engineers and developers are in-house with offices in Europe and North America. which allows them to have global 24/7 support to complement their enterprise offerings. Visit linbit.com to learn more about the people behind LINBIT and the awesome software for block storage, duplication, and more.
Tell us, Michael,
Did that
about what's
well.
going on here to complete my master plan of controversy.
Okay, so now that you have your minds all wrapped around the Microsoft controversy that Ryan has set up, let's add some more fuel to that fire. So let's talk about ARM and how it could be the next big thing for Nvidia.
Yes.
Nvidia.
Now, there's a race right now to compete with Apple's widely successful ARM-based processors. And Apple, to be fair, they really did make a very good CPU. There's a lot of people who would say Apple doesn't make anything themselves and they're not actually a good company. And depending on how you're talking about it, they're not. But when you come to the CPU side, their chips are really powerful
It's
and
not debatable.
yeah, and very efficient and all of this. And Ryan and I have both used Apple laptops with these new chips just to see if the hype was real. And it is. They
It's
absolutely
dang
are
impressive.
impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, not just from being efficient, but they're also very usable in terms of the various applications you can use them. You would assume that this thing is not, it feels like it's underpowered because you just based on the specs and how much wattage it needs and all that sort of stuff. And then you push it through with the video editing or, rendering stuff, and it handles it just fine.
Yeah. It's incredible, actually, what they've been able to pull off from a GPU standpoint and the CPU standpoint, because they're all combined on this one chip.
Yeah.
They're getting performance that a lot of dedicated GPUs would have a hard time hitting. And it's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal what they did. They obviously have trillions of dollars to do it, so maybe not as phenomenal as maybe a startup company doing it, but it's quite
not that impressive with trillions of dollars.
Yeah. Trillions of dollars, I'd create a cool CPU too. But they've done some amazing things here. There's no taking that away from them. And I think that they have absolutely scared the crap out of Intel, AMD, and everybody else with what they've done here. Intel for a while there was pretty cocky, and they probably were laughing when Apple was like, hey, we're going to move away from your silicon again. We're going to move away from x86 and we're going to go to ARM. And I remember people talking about the fact of, oh, you're going to have so many problems with compatibility. And then Apple created Rosetta and this Rosetta 2 version, I believe. And Rosetta was just absolutely incredible at emulation. In fact, Windows, which I tried this recently, actually runs better on my Mac than a dedicated Windows machine using parallels and emulation. Like, it's fast and snappy. And I'm like, wow, this is what Windows could be being emulated.
Wow.
Like, it's unbelievable, some of the stuff. And then, of course, you've got Asahi Linux, which you can install on your Mac as well there, which is very cool. They're making big gains there with that OS if you want to check out the
big
hardware.
Gains with a Z at the end.
Gains with the Z, exactly. So Nvidia entering the ARM market and the CPU market specifically is very interesting. Here's a company that's also now valued at $1 trillion+ because of their AI, their GPUs being used in AI. And they're coming out swinging, saying that they're going to have in 2024, 2025, their first version of a ARM-based CPU for Windows machines. And that, to me, is fascinating when you combine it with the fact that AMD has also been investing in ARM and says they're going to be releasing some CPUs in 2025 and even sooner. And so you've got everybody kind of going into this market, and it's a race to see who can keep up and hopefully surpass Apple there. Qualcomm just got in the news for catching up with the M1, and Apple's about to release the M3. So that kind of shows you how far some of the other ARM-based companies
Well, also, this is insane to me because this is not just crazy that people are doing this thing to battle with Apple. Companies always compete with Apple, and they always wait until Apple does something. The thing that's crazy and insane is that Apple innovated something. They actually did it first, which is what?
They usually come in
not
later
Apple.
and make it better,
Yeah,
more
they
user friendly.
take something that's clunky, it's a good idea, and then they polish it. This is they took something that everyone thought was a terrible idea and then proved it wasn't. And the reason why I think that they were so successful in it is because, well, they're Apple and they have kind of like this kind of grip on the neck of a lot of the market when it comes to various different industries. So people were willing to do it, but also the Rosetta stuff was like, that is really what makes it work. And I fear that AMD having an ARM chip, Nvidia having an ARM chip, Intel having an ARM chip, and other companies introducing ARM chips that are going to compete at this level, I fear that this is going to cause a massive problem with compatibility because Apple is a single company that has a single OS, that has a single everything, and it's all encompassing. Whereas these companies are all competing with the same OS, but ARM is not made to work the same across every instruction set. Like every device is effectively its own system. That's why you have to have different ROMs made for specific Android devices and that sort of stuff. So are we going to have to deal with different ROMs for each of these ARM chips? That's actually kind of terrifying if they're going to compete in this way, because there's going to be some need to have a universal, even for Windows, there's going to be some need for a universal solution there.
We're going to be going
they're
back
going
to
need
the days.
some i386 standards like Intel does with AMD and the other competitors. We're going to have some kind of unifying code there.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or we go back to the days where, do you remember, like in Windows 3.11, probably Windows 95, maybe some of 98, where you would have to go find specific drivers that the operating system would not find for you. You'd have to go hunt them down, download all of your bus drivers, your specific sound controllers in your drive, all of the individual drivers for each thing to work with your motherboard, because the stuff was not standardized at all. It's much less today. It still happens some, but very little today. But when you were saying that, Michael, that's what was going through my head, is those days of hunting exclamation marks all across.
I feel like that's coming back.
System profiles.
What is old is new again.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that's interesting about this is NVIDIA has gone into the CPU realm before with the NVIDIA Tegra. I have lots of NVIDIA Tegra devices in my collection, including my Ouya game console, the Android-based game console that I've done a treasure hunt on a long time ago here on Destination Linux. And that never really took off. And part of that, it was a little slow and clunky. Yes, it did a good job with games and multimedia, but other than that, it wasn't a very powerful processor. So what NVIDIA is doing now is they're getting into high performance computing with ARM. And so that's the differentiation there.
Yeah. And you're competing at an insane rate. Like we were, if you go back and listen to Hardware Addicts podcast, we were talking about going to 7 nanometer and how unbelievably impressive that was.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about Apple's chips being 3 nanometer.
I know.
They halved it out of nowhere. And 7 was insane. We went from 14 to 7. It was like, what? And now we're talking 3 nanometer. And just the ability to use the big little architecture that's so popular in ARM to create the efficiencies and things that they have is incredible. So the fact they're going to be using this instruction set is just not surprising to me, but Michael's 100% right about the compatibility issues this could create if there's no standardization. But it also completes my theory, which is why I brought you along this journey. It would be much easier for Windows to rebase off Linux with all this ARM support coming in, because Linux rocks the ARM. Let's not forget about Raspberry Pi here. But first, we're the best. We do ARM better than anybody else. So Windows would be smart to rebase everything on ARM right here, or Linux, and then ARM. Yeah,
absolutely, Ryan. I'm actually, very positive about the Linux future on ARM or the advanced RISC machines processor, especially because of the rich Linux history using the ARM architecture and actually RISC in general. So Linux supports ARM, on cell phones and routers and IoT, and on ARM processors used by NASA, SpaceX, and the aerospace industry, not to mention industrial applications and the various SoCs and single board computers like the Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
And we have the fine work being done by Asahi Linux to port Linux to modern Mac M1, M2, and M3 in the future processors. The RISC architecture in general has been Unix and Linux first and started with Digital Equipment Corporation, Sun Microsystems, and SGI machines. So we have huge lineage here in the RISC architecture, which is a major part of ARM.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Windows,
So-
we merely adopted the darkness. We were born in it.
Yes. And now we have the open RISC-V chips coming, which already has Linux support out of the box. And speaking of which, RISC-V chips are already present in most of our GPUs, CPUs, and other computer parts like hard drives, and including Nvidia GPUs.
Mm-hmm. And also
So-
some soldering gun things.
Yeah, soldering guns. Yeah. Thank you, Pine 64.
Exactly.
An interesting little note from our patron room is Wendy just said DaVinci Resolve has just announced they're coming to ARM. So that's very cool
Oh, yeah.
to see
that's-
that's coming.
That is
in the
good.
works.
I mean,
Yeah.
I want
Awesome.
to see the RISC-V architecture become a true competitor to ARM. So I would like to see Intel and AMD compete on that side. So sure, make an ARM one too. You shouldn't not have that, because why not? But also make a RISC-V, because I think that it feels like everyone's adopting a single technology of ARM.
Yeah.
And that can't be great. You
That
know,
can't
We
be
did
good.
that with x86, right? I mean,
I mean, that's more of a standardization of like an architecture, but it wasn't the problem with ARM is that the separation that each of these devices have and each of these chips have from each other, because they were designed that way to be more efficient, it creates a huge problem. Whereas like there's fragmentation between just one ARM chip to another ARM chip, you know? So with x86, sure, there's one technology, but also there's compatibility between the two. So you could have your software run on either one, and it doesn't really matter. Whereas with ARM, you're lucky.
you think
if you
Windows
get it to
is
work.
bloated now? Wait till they have to load the 80 different ARM architectures inside of it to get it to work.
You're gonna go back into installing the, like what I was making a joke about, what is old is new again, is I think that installing plugins and drivers and all of that stuff is going to come back because of the specific ARM chip that you might have. They're going to have to just pull it in, and otherwise it would be at a already massive Windows, you know.
This is like what we used to do in the 80s with RISC systems.
You know what? Okay, I'm gonna give you a crazy thought. Instead of this ARM system and these RISC-V, even instead of x86, what I want is that Microsoft rebase on punch cards.
Yeah.
And bring back
I'm
punch
all
cards.
for that.
Jill's the only one who know how to use a computer, out of all of us. We'll rely on Jill for everything. Well, now that you guys have experienced my, extravaganza of conspiracy theories here, I think it's time.
Your cornucopia of conspiracies.
Yeah. Move on to something a little happier, like our gaming section. What do we got in the gaming section, Jill?
Okay, so Michael and Ryan actually have intense debates over the age-old question, which is better, cupcakes or muffins?
Cupcakes.
Muffins.
Cupcakes. So
It's okay to be wrong, Jill. You have a right to be wrong.
Oh, we're still fighting?
you're still fighting. You guys are still fighting. So one developer named Project 610 is trying to dethrone Ryan's claim that cupcakes are superior.
It's like Mike Tyson knockout.
Yes. So the game this week is called Here Goes Muffin. You explore various environments as a muffin in
Sounds
this
boring.
exploratory physics-based puzzle platformer starring a muffin with legs.
Naturally.
And it's a little creepy too.
Honestly, I think muffins are clearly the best.
Yes.
But as a platformer, it is a little creepy.
So the upbeat 8-bit music works especially well with the pixelated graphics of the Muffin and the maps that you traverse through. And as you move your Muffin along 2D platforming obstacles, you collect treats along the way, such as a popsicle, which then allows you to jump up to the next platform, and a lollipop wheel that lets you climb hills and hang below platforms.
So cute, it hurts.
Yes. And yeah, like I said earlier, the Muffin is a little creepy looking, but it's actually very cute in its creepiness.
That's how I
it's
describe
almost
Michael.
kawaii.
No.
He's cute
in
in
my
his
creepiness?
Yeah.
I mean,
And
maybe a little bit.
so this blueberry muffin game called Here Goes Muffin, and yes, it is a blueberry muffin. It's called
Which is one of the best muffins ever.
It actually is.
Classic,
I'll give you that.
legendary.
I will give you that, Michael. So this game can be purchased on Steam for 25% off for $2.99 till October 30th. And there's also a free demo available to download that you can play on our Linux Penguins right out of the box. Hooray for Here Goes Muffin.
I do
Before
like
you
the
get all-
name of Here Goes Muffin.
Yes.
I can feel you getting all high and mighty, Michael, that we've got a muffin game here. I want you
I would
to
never
notice.
ever do that except for, of course I am, because muffins are best.
Well,
Because you didn't get a game.
If you didn't, well, I did. I found a cupcake game, which we'll talk about in a second. But I want to tell you that the plot of this game is you collect various sweets. You know why? Because the true story is the muffin wants to become a cupcake and wants to be sweet, wants to have the frosting, wants to have a candy on top. And that's the real story behind this game, which makes it a win for me.
That is an interesting perspective that you're saying. However, I would like to counterpoint with a lollipop has absolutely nothing to do with either one. And also a popsicle to jump. I don't think there's a story here, Ryan.
There is. It's another conspiracy that the true story behind this game is the muffin wants to become a cupcake. That's my conspiracy there.
So true, Ryan.
Thank you, Joe.
A muffin does not need to become a cupcake. A cupcake is a cake that is just small. Like that's sad, really, if you think about it. It's like a cupcake is a cake that couldn't really become a full cake. It's like,
That's spoken like a true pen chewer.
Whereas muffins are decadent and dense and flavorful. And there's so many varieties. Whereas cupcakes only value is icing. And and that's not great. Who cares?
You know what you never see out there is a muffin
filled
shop.
Or jelly filled.
Yes, you do. Even Seinfeld made an episode about it.
I've never seen a muffin shop. There's plenty of cupcake shops out there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fair enough. You know why? It's because every single cafe and coffee shop that has ever existed has them anyway.
Yeah.
You don't need to do that because they know it's such a staple.
Nobody wants to specialize.
You don't go into a coffee
muffin.
You don't go into a coffee shop and say, "Oh, I want a cupcake." They'd be like, "Are you okay? You want a muffin, right?" And like, see, that's why.
Oh, so you clearly aren't familiar with Starbucks cake pops, which are just cupcakes in a popsicle.
Oh, Ryan, that's one of my favorite treats of all time.
Okay, I am familiar with those. So technically, Starbucks has both. So I guess we'll consider it a tie right now.
Oh,
all right. Well, I found
delicious.
A game for the true non-pen chewers out there, the cupcake lovers, that you can play right from your browser. Because I wasn't going to leave you with just a muffin game.
I'm not a pen chewer, people. I'm just clarifying.
If you want to go to Papa's Cupcakeria in your browser, we'll have a link. It's from crazygames.com. Papa's Cupcakeria. You can make little perfect cupcakes and run your own bakery. And another advantage, you get real life skills learning how to make cupcakes through this game. That is why cupcakes are not only
Here Goes Muffin. You can
you
can learn the real life skill of taking popsicles and attaching them to your feet so you can jump higher. I think that's how that works.
And the sticks stick out.
Oh man! So you get 2 games this week. We're giving you lots of value.
Yeah.
Here.
So much value.
You get Here Goes. So much value.
Oh, and Papa's Cupcakeria is made using Ruffle. Yes, Ruffle is the open source version of Adobe Flash. And it runs very well.
You know what I love about Jill Michael is I put this stupid game in here and did no research on it. I just found a cupcake game, and she goes and does this behind the scenes research to determine it was actually made with an open source. I had no clue. I was just trying to find a cupcake game to battle this muffin game, and I just happened to get lucky, it sounds like. I planned that. All right, Jill,
you planned that Jill would go beyond.
Go above and beyond. What's our software spotlight this week, Jill?
So this week, our software spotlight is ProtonPass. Yay! You've likely heard us talk about Proton Mail and the many features this privacy-focused email service provides. ProtonPass is another service from Proton Mail that allows you to generate secure passwords. It has end-to-end encryption and a cool identity manager that generates unique email aliases. ProtonPass is open source and independently audited. Also, it has 2FA and encrypted notes, and you can use it on all your devices. So awesome. There is a 7-day free trial, and you can import your passwords easily from other password managers to try it out. If you upgrade your plan, you also get Proton VPN included and Proton Drive to securely store your awesome files. So if you're looking for a good password manager by a very trusted company, check out ProtonPass. It is available for iOS and Android and as a browser extension for Chrome, Firefox, Brave, and Edge. We can't forget Edge.
Yes.
Don't worry, Microsoft. They got you.
Got you.
Yes.
So I tried ProtonPass this week. I imported from Bitwarden into ProtonPass to check it out. A lot of the same things we love about Bitwarden is also in ProtonPass. So I like that Proton's kind of creating this whole environment, their suite of products around it, their calendar, their drive, all of this stuff. I think that it's really awesome that they're building all of this out for people. So you've got one place to go, kind of like the Google suite of services and things in there. But encrypted, secure, private, all of that good stuff in there. And the independent auditing is a really important feature that they have, which is a big deal here for a password manager because you're putting a lot of trust in the password manager. This is not something you just want to pick an app off the app store and download one. You want somebody you've done
you want to make sure that the thing that you are trusting to have your most sensitive data is actually trustable to have your most sensitive data.
Yeah.
So an audit is a fantastic way of doing it. Independent audit is a fantastic proof of that. Do you know which did the audited?
I don't know. I didn't look it up. I mean, I think it's out there because they have the actual files that you can look at from the independent audits. But I don't know which companies actually performed it. But I think it's awesome that they're doing this, and their service is really good. One of the things that I think it does better than other password managers that I've used is its autofill capabilities were on point. Like it really seemed to know what site you were on and able to fill in those passwords without having to do any shortcut keys or anything like that. If you wanted it to, you can turn that off. But if you wanted that, that was a feature that it had that was really good. It looks really good. It's really brilliantly written software. We were joking about software you download for drivers that come off Dropbox and stuff earlier. This looks like it was made by $1 billion corporation. It's beautiful. It's like their VPN service is beautiful. Their software for their VPN is gorgeous. Have you guys played with their VPN?
I haven't used the VPN, but I've used the other stuff.
And everything. It's just beautiful.
The calendar is so nice. The mail is nice. I use the mail. Awesome. There's a lot of good stuff from this company. So I'm not surprised that the ProtonPass is also a solid option too.
Proton, you could sponsor us. Just saying.
Hey, by the way, Proton.
Just a thought. Just throw it out there.
No pressure, except do it.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
That's your tip and trick of the week. Sponsor us.
For them, the tip of the week for Proton is to sponsor us. But the tip of the week for you, lovely viewer, not you, the lovely viewers, is how to get into the holiday spirit with a geeky style.
Nice.
So earlier we talked about cupcakes and how they're terrible and muffins and how they're amazing. But also another thing is great is the Raspberry Pi, or specifically the Pi, the Pi. Actually, by the way, I was looking for a monitor to go with my Pi, which we by the way, we all has Raspberry Pi 5s. And we have been having a ball with them.
Thanks to the Raspberry Pi Foundation for sending this to us. You guys
that was awesome.
It was
And
so
I've been using
wonderful.
the mouse and the keyboard that comes with it. The Raspberry Pi mouse is actually
Yeah.
pretty decent. The keyboard is pretty decent, but they do feel like they're not premium, which makes sense because I think they're like $10.
Yeah.
But the Raspberry Pi 5, by the way, is so much more performant than I was
Oh,
expecting.
so fast.
I know
Yeah.
they said it was twice as fast as the 4, but it's still shocking how much faster it was. So anyway, back to the point of my pun of the Raspberry Pi. And that is, we're talking about how you can use the Raspberry Pi to do some cool effects for the holidays. Because, Ryan, the holidays are just around the corner.
Finally.
Yay.
Not wrong.
So we have some Halloween ideas, and also you can get some Christmas ideas and stuff like that.
Yay.
And you'll find links in the show notes for some projects that give you some ideas of what to do with it from the Raspberry Pi Foundation, because there's a lot of cool stuff with, like, you know, you can make a magic mirror with a Raspberry Pi, and you could have stuff popping up, and you can connect it to a projector and have it projecting some stuff onto your windows for, you know, Halloween or something like that. One of my favorites is having like a sheet that you put in front of the window and then having a projector shoot out like ghost onto the sheet.
Yeah.
And it just looks really good.
That's pretty
Just
cool.
looks
That's
really good.
cool.
I love the magic mirror idea. So the magic mirror is a project I've wanted to tackle. And this is where you kind of get this mirror that
You don't want to tackle a mirror, Ryan. That would be, you get 7 years of bad luck.
Now I don't know what to do. But I wanted to take on this project, and it's, you know, it's pretty involved to create one of these little mirrors. Like, there's a lot of steps into it. Anything over 10 steps to me is pretty involved. So there's a lot of steps into it, but you could create a goal version of this where you can have a ghost inside the mirror as well. So not just for your digital weather and things, but the ghost will, like, you have guests over, right? They go in the spare bathroom. They go in, they start washing their hands, and then blah, and then you scare the crap out of them. Just sounds amazing to me. Like, there's projects like that.
Are you saying replace the actual mirror in their bathroom?
Yes.
With this, so you can freak people out.
Oh, that would be
So
brilliant.
good.
I was thinking of something that could work for Christmas or Halloween.
Look at Jill trying to be nice.
When your door opens, when you greet someone or a trick or treat, it opens and the Raspberry
axe
Pi
swings down.
projects a tunnel effect of projections, like a time warp.
Oh.
And you can't see, like, they couldn't see me handing them candy or welcoming them in the house.
Jill takes this idea of scaring people and tries to make it, like, you know,
a very nice, loving thing.
Yeah, just a little. I don't know how you're going to pull off all these visual effects that you're talking about.
She takes your horror scaring people and Jillifies it into a positive message and a positive action.
I bet Nate can figure out how to figure all this stuff out. By the way, Nate, which does unbelievably cool projects with the Raspberry Pis and other devices, absolutely probably has a whole thing already set up for Halloween.
I don't know how he has it set up exactly, but he 100% does have stuff set up. He showed off. He has one of those, like, screens that you have, like with the lighting systems. You know how, like, the lights around Christmas, and they also have, like, some screens that are on the side of the building. And he has it set up so that it's mixed with music and stuff like that, and does special effects and things. So it's very elaborate, and there's some posts on his website. We'll have those links if you want to check those out.
He said, and he's in our patron chat right now. He says, "I love SBCs, which are single board computers, and my house is currently orange and purple." So he's already got all of that hooked up. If you want to learn about that, check out Linux Out Loud. You get Wendy, you get Nate, you get Matt there, one of the podcasts we have on our network as well. And I'm sure he'll be talking about some of his awesome projects he does for the holidays. But I love that tip, Michael, because you can always find something extra to do with the Raspberry Pi. And then, you know,
that's not a conspiracy, people.
That's not a conspiracy. Your spouse is nagging at you to go out there, stop playing with that Linux thing, and go out there and make some decorations on the house. You could be
so then you can play with Linux things there.
Combine them. Combine the two things, and you always win.
I like it. I like how you're thinking, buddy.
Yeah. All right. So we got some events coming up. Ubuntu Summit is less than 2 weeks away. It's next week.
Next week.
It's less than 1 week away.
That's true. It's next week. I will be traveling to the Ubuntu Summit next Wednesday, and I will get to fly for an entire day. It's very
your
far
arms
away.
are going to be tired from
Yeah.
flapping.
Latvia.
Yes, it will. My arms will be so tired. Actually, they probably will, geez, because sitting in a chair for 15,
Especially
20
those
hours.
Airplane chairs.
Yeah, it's gonna be worth it because there are so many cool things at the Ubuntu Summit. In fact, this is a little bit of a spoiler for anybody who doesn't know this. DreamWorks is going to be at the Ubuntu Summit giving a talk. So I plan to
Cool is that?
schmooze with some DreamWorks
Awesome.
people. And also, I'm sure Jill knows like 20 of them,
She's nodding her head yes.
Yes, of course she does. So, but also, I'm going to do a talk, and I have partially written it this time. So, by the time I get
partially written.
by the time I get there, it'll be fully written. It'll be ready.
Yeah.
And I'm also doing some moderating of a panel for the community council of Ubuntu. They're doing an AMA, so that's going to be fun. And gonna do a vlog every day for the conference, which is it's crazy to do that, but I'm gonna try it anyway because I just wanted the challenge, Just
so where are people gonna see your vlog? Where will they go to watch the vlog, Michael?
That's a great question. I wish I had an answer for. So for now, we'll just say tuxdigital.com, and I'll make sure that is correct. So
Awesome.
tuxdigital.com.
You'll have a link on tuxdigital.com to see the vlog.
Well, I'm just going to post the episodes on tuxdigital.com as well.
Cool.
But they'll be on my YouTube channel as well. And probably some other things. So follow me on Twitter and whatnot. Or X. Is it X now?
now, I think. I don't know.
Zitter. I call it
Zitter.
Wow. Oh, man. I don't think Elon saw that one coming.
Yeah. I don't think he did. Yeah. Or Mastodon. You can follow him there. So
Nate says he calls it Twix. That makes sense too. Twitter and X combined.
I like that, except for also Twix is one of the best candy bars ever. So
the left or right Twix, though.
That is the true question.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna say mine and you're gonna say yours at the same time.
Right.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Left Twix.
What?
Wow, we both like the left Twix. That's awesome.
hilarious.
The left Twix is way better than the right Twix. Always has been.
It is always been better. It's so weird that we actually agree on something.
Yeah.
It is possible, people.
Personally, I like the white Twix, the one that's white chocolate cover.
I don't think I've tried the white.
I don't think I've tried that one either, but it sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, so you're going to be at Ubuntu Summit, so everyone needs to be checking out tuxdigital.com for information on that next week because we won't have a show next week.
Yeah.
Michael's going to be off at the Ubuntu Summit, but we will have the vlogs and other things coming out. So
Lots
stay tuned.
of content. I'll also probably post some stuff on the Destination Linux channel, just so for people who don't get the message yet, they can get notified in that sense. So if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel on Destination Linux, you'll still get some content there because there's so much content that I'll be making. There's plenty to spread around.
Yeah. Let's hope
Can't
we
wait.
get all of that
I can't
content
wait.
Michael's promising there.
It will happen.
Jet lag's a thing, man.
I know it's a thing. You're right. But I know I'm very confident it will happen.
All right.
I have zero confidence in how well it will be executed. So
But it will happen.
It will
happen.
It will
We
happen.
also have exciting news to share with you. Scale 2024 is scheduled for March 14th through the 17th of 2024 at the Pasadena Convention Center in Pasadena, California.
Oh, that's where that is. Okay.
Yeah. You can hang out with Jill, Michael, and myself. So set that time aside. Get your PTO scheduled. Get ready to come hang
Put it
out
on
with
your
us
calendar right now, people.
Yeah, right now.
right now.
Because all three of us will be there, not just me, like the Ubuntu Summit. It actually is probably worth it just to come to see me. And if Jill was there too, obviously, it's clearly.
Aw.
She says it is.
All three of us.
Man, 3 for the price of 1? That's unbelievable. What a deal.
Well, in our
What a
case, it's
deal.
3 for the price of none because we're not charging.
We're not charging
Should
people
we
just to look at
charge
us?
admission to scale to see our booth? That's an interesting idea.
Only
Probably not.
Jill would pay because she'd just be trying to be nice to us. Like, here's $1,
Everybody else
boys.
would be like, well, no, why would you? No, we just want to see Jill. And then Jill would be like, it's okay. You don't have to do it. And everybody just walks around us.
Yeah.
we could put a tip bucket.
There you go. Tip us. We'll say geeky things for food.
Yeah.
All right. A big thank you to each and every one of you for supporting us by watching or listening to Destination Linux. However you do it, we love your faces. You can come join us in a Discord. If you become a patron, you have your own special patron room to talk with other patrons there. And why become a patron? Well, Michael will tell you some other reasons why, but I'm going to tell you because this show exists thanks to them. Not everybody can afford to donate to the show, but those that can and do are the reason this show exists for so many episodes. 345 is because of our patrons. Advertisers come and go. We can't count on that. Our patrons are what keep this show running each and every month. So thank you to all of our patrons for supporting this show.
Absolutely. And also, if you wanted some extra perks, in addition to the patron-only section of our Discord server, we also have a ton of other cool perks. So you have the unedited versions of the shows. You get all the full content of any time Ryan messes up, and and you see how much Jill and I are perfect in our presentation skills.
Don't put Jill in with yourself. How dare you?
What do you mean? Jill is my spirit animal. I talked about this last week.
Okay.
So you also get features of ad-free versions of the show on the tuxdigital.com/membership patronship system. So you get all of this stuff. Everything that I've mentioned, plus you get to join us live as we record it and in the patron-only post show that happens every week after the show. So
what is this, $100 a month? I mean, what do we charge?
It should be, but it starts at just $3 a month. That's right, just $3 a month. And it can go, the higher you go, the more perks you get, as you might expect how memberships work. tuxdigital.com/membership to get all of this cool stuff. Plus, if you want to show your support to everyone around you, you can get some cool swag from the tuxdigital.com/store. And you go to the store, you can get some t-shirts, you can get some hoodies, hats, mugs, stickers, coasters, so much stuff. And it's all fantastic. And it's going to be even more because we have some changes coming, because we're going to be changing our platform provider for the store. So some of the stuff we have now is not going to be there. So you might want to get some like OG legacy cool stuff. And then there's going to be new stuff coming on the next platform that I am very excited about. And in fact,
please tell me Sinister Wendy stays there in the new store, though. Like,
Ryan,
it's legendary.
How dare you? How dare you even consider that it's not there? Because not only is it there, it was the first thing I put there.
Awesome.
So
thank goodness.
Of course it's there.
And then the Jill shirt, I mean, that's gone though. No one's going to get a Jill shirt anymore.
Never again.
If they don't order the Jill shirt now, you will never have a Jill shirt.
That's correct, because technically we launched that when Jill joined us on the show, and now since she's been here for so long, we're gonna have to make a new Jill shirt. Exactly.
But you're not going to get the old one.
Yeah, the old one is going to be like a classic. You're going to be like an OG person who proved
the Rolex of shirts, folks.
The Rolex, the Rolls Royce of shirts. Exactly. So tuxdigital.com/store to get all of this and more.
And make sure to check out all the incredibly awesome shows here on Tux Digital. That's right, we have an entire network of shows to fill your entire week with geeky goodness. Check out the lovely Linux Out Loud with Matt, Nate, and Wendy having a blast and sharing their awesome passion for Linux and open source. Everyone head to tuxdigital.com and subscribe to all these great shows. And don't forget to leave a rating on your favorite app so others can discover the power of open source and keep those penguins marching and the full Monty of Linux and open source awesome sauce.
Everybody have a great week, and remember that the journey itself is just as important as a destination.
Thanks, everyone. Left Twix for life.
Penguins marching.
Yeah.
See you next time, people.